Trump has, in these last few years of being out of power, I think he's thought things through. And even with the cabinet whom he is bringing in, he has obviously had discussions with them as to what to do. And I say that on two counts. One, Trump has made contradictory statements as soon as he came in. On the one hand, he talks about, he has referred to China as a competitor, as a rival, and threatened sanctions of various kinds, not sanctions, tariffs of various kinds.
Yeah. Tomorrow, the February 1st deadline that President Trump put into place at a statement several weeks ago continues. The president will be implementing tomorrow a 25% tariffs on Mexico, 25% tariffs on Canada, and a 10% tariff on China for the illegal fentanyl that they have sourced and allowed to distribute into our country, which has killed tens of millions of Americans. These are promises made and promises kept by the president.
On the other hand, he calls Xi Jinping a friend and China a big country. But if you look slightly lower, Rubio, the Secretary of State, the first meeting that he had as Secretary of State after the inauguration was with the Quad.
That's right. All the Quad foreign ministers were there.
All the Quad, and and it was planned.
Yes.
And where they spoke about aggressive actions in the South China Sea. So the message is very clear.
Sure.
And then Hexet, who has just been appointed or confirmed as Defense Secretary, he sent a message to the force, where again the only country that he mentioned is Communist China, and he said we have to gear up to prepare against them. The others, the NSA, Mike Waltz, is similarly very negative on China and very critical of China. So you've got this team of people, at least 5 prospective and present current cabinet ministers in Trump's cabinet, who are hard on China, who are going to go for China. Secondly, I think the Republicans and the Democrats themselves are also have a very negative view on China, and
so it's a bipartisan negative.
It's a bipartisan. The only people who may try and sort of modulate or moderate Trump's actions and views would be the big business in the United States, who are committed to making money out of China.
And invested in China.
But Trump has just come out with a statement that I read this morning, where he says that I'm going to slam them with a lot of tariffs if they don't come home and manufacture here. He was talking in context of Taiwan and the chips.
Right.
So there is a contradiction there. But having said that, I think it is today, if you look, unless of course Trump strikes some kind of a deal, I think it is they're on a course where the competition is going to escalate, where I think Trump and Xi Jinping are going to collect their friends or allies or partners together in their own corners. So I think the other countries will have to now, they're reaching a stage where they'll have to make a choice.
Right.
So I think the world will be divided. We'll go back into that kind of system. And I wouldn't put it past, the Americans and the Chinese that they would have a clash somewhere, instigated by someone.
It's ironical that Richard Nixon and Henry Kissinger did an outreach to China in 1972 just to bring China into the normal fold in the global arena. And now after so many years, 53 years, we are seeing that the Americans are probably regretting what they did. But that's past. Looking into the future, before I sort of come to India and China and what India must do, I also want to ask you about the internal economic situation in China. We've heard various reports about how it's in a bad shape at the moment, or it's going to create problems for Xi Jinping. But if you go by what's happened in the last 2 days, or say last 2 months, let's say, first they announced the first flight of the 6th generation fighter aircraft. Now they've got this DeepSeek, a very inexpensive AI tool or AI program, which has spooked the
Yeah.
US technology companies, and the stock market has really crashed in US. Nvidia has lost so much. So, what is the correct assessment on China? Because since you watch China so closely, is it all hype, or is it that he's trying to project an image which gives confidence to his own people and also puts a scare in the minds of the Americans? Where are we there on that?
If you don't mind, Nitin, I'll just take a moment. I think we should look at the weeds, if I may say,
Sure,
of,
yeah.
of the entire thing.
Of course.
And 2, 3 facts I'd
Yeah,
like
yeah,
to put
please.
out here.
Yeah, yeah.
First, more than half of China's provinces have missed their self-set GDP growth targets.
Okay.
So that indicates an overall decline in thing, including so-called prosperous province like Hainan Island. So that's one.
Okay.
The second is that at least 100 protests have been recorded across China, and some of them have escalated. Third, the economic situation is obviously bad enough for people to come out and, I would say, indirectly or implicitly criticize Xi Jinping's policies, which is a dangerous thing to do in China. But just a couple of days ago, I saw a very lengthy article in the People's Daily under a pseudonym used by the Central Economic Affairs Commission, which talked about how very little has been done for private entrepreneurs who are really the engines of growth.
Okay.
Now that's something that goes against Xi Jinping's line, because he's pushing for state-owned enterprises. There have been other articles which are talking about the Economic Work Conference having been delayed and things like this. So I think there is a lot of discontent, made worse probably by Xi Jinping targeting the bankers and the financial regulators, many of whom have landed up in prison. So I think the economic situation is bad. Having said that, matters are compounded by the United States and Europe cutting down on imports from China.
And also raising tariffs.
So now this so-called, even if it is just 10%, it's a scary prospect for them. And the People's Daily, which is the mouthpiece of the party, has just come out with an article saying that, Trump has announced all these tariffs, but 16% and deportations, 16% of those working in the food supply sector, like the department stores, etc., are undocumented. And 41% in the agricultural sector are undocumented. So that is going to cause a lot of problem to the American consumer and, etc. So it talks about the collapse of the agricultural system in the United States. So they are fighting a kind of a defensive battle. They know that things are going to get worse.
Okay.
But they are banking on the fact that the American consumer will complain about the 10% hike or plus, more than 10% that he's going to suffer.
Yeah.
That's one thing that they're banking on.
Okay.
But they know that it's going to be tough. So I think things economically are tough on them. And Trump's warning to the BRICS nations that if you try and move away from the dollar, then I'm going to come for you, I think would have been a dampener to many of the countries which are looking at it from that point. India, of course, had already made a statement
there's
saying
no
we are not
currency
looking.
that we are looking at.
And I think it would be a very foolish move if we go in for a currency swap with a country which is an adversary, close to being an enemy rather.
Correct.
So, but the others were toying with the idea, and I think the message has gone through. So that's the situation as far as
Internal economic situation is concerned.
And I think Xi Jinping is under pressure, but he's trying to hold on.
Right.
The advertising or propagandizing of the 6th generation aircraft, etc., I think a lot of it is propaganda. Now, this particular aircraft, certainly they've shown a small video, but nothing more. People are looking
Which
out.
engine, what,
yeah, exactly.
we don't know.
There are no details, neither of performance. So I think it's still a far, far away.
Sure.
And the Chinese have a habit of projecting what is on the drawing board as if it's already come.
Right.
They were having problems, as you know, with just development of jet engines. So I think it's far distant. But what is certainly there and which is real is this DeepSeek.
Yes.
The only question there is whether it is really as cheap as made out.
They're saying 96% cheaper than ChatGPT.
Than ChatGPT. Now, those are the figures that they have put out,
Yes.
$6 million or something like that. But the point is, we know that the Chinese state, the government, has pumped in a lot of money into AI. Now, probably, and I'm not saying that I have evidence for it,
Sure.
it will come, I suppose, in a while, but probably a lot of that has gone into development of DeepSeek.
I'm sure.
Because there's nothing private there. It's all,
Yeah,
state-owned
state-owned,
companies.
right.
So I suspect that DeepSeek costs a lot more, but it has come at a time when the Chinese can say that we have arrived, we are at this level, and at the Davos forum just now, there was a forum on AI,
Right.
where they have said that, we can collaborate with the world on AI.
And
So
the world will veer towards them if it's cheaper
if
than
it's cheaper and more easily available.
More easily available, yeah. So I think the US has a lot to think about. US tech companies,
Yes.
Nvidia, OpenAI, all those companies will have a lot to think about. Although they also announced a project called Stargate,
Yeah.
with $600 billion of initial investment between
Exactly.
Nvidia, Google, and I think OpenAI.
Yeah.
So,
But they're starting.
and Oracle. Yeah.
They're starting now,
Now, yeah.
which is after behind.
behind the Chinese. So they actually have a lot of progress on deep tech or
Yeah.
future technology that the Chinese have demonstrated. But also this factor on the China-US competition is also Russia. I think many people think that China, Russia together would pose a major threat to the US. How does Trump then deal with these two together?
Trump has spoken about ending the war in
Yes,
Ukraine.
in Ukraine, yeah.
If he succeeds, then he releases, to an extent, if maybe I'm exaggerating here, but he releases Russia from being captive to China.
Which they anyway don't like.
They don't like it, but today they have no option.
Right.
And he can, in a way, throw a lifeline to Putin and say that, look, we are here. That frees him to do what I may call a reverse Nixon on China. And that is what Xi Jinping is very worried about, and the Chinese Communist Party, but primarily Xi Jinping, who, if you recall, in fact, we discussed it on your program some years
exactly
ago.
3 months ago.
That,
Oh no, the earlier one.
Earlier
I'm
one.
talking about, yeah.
That, there were people who had opposed Xi Jinping's policy of backing Putin.
Right.
So all that will come out.
Sure.
So I think if Trump is able to push that through, then China is going to have an even rougher time. And my hunch is, I'm not sure. I'm sure he will try it. I don't think Europe can afford to continue backing Ukraine with money without US support. And I don't see Europe putting boots on the ground in Ukraine.
That